The voice of sharing. 旅人 ASEAN.
Hi everyone, you're with Gowri today on the ABC News today. On a beautiful Tuesday morning, a bit cloudy outside, but okay for the most part. So Arlene is still not back yet. She'll be joining you guys tomorrow on the breakfast show. So today is just me, and I'll be presenting to you our news for today. So the first news today will be from The Sun. Taiwan move will cause further brain drain. Taiwan's decision to allow more Malaysian graduates to work in the Republic is good news to many whose degrees are not recognized in Malaysia, but it would mean further brain drain for the country. Dong Zong, United Chinese School Committees Association Deputy President Chow Siu-hon, pointed out that the opening up of the education field to retain or attract talent is a global trend. The Americans had adopted this approach long before others, retaining foreign talent by providing employment opportunities to overseas students upon graduation. He said that similarly in the past, Singapore had absorbed countless independent Chinese school students from Malaysia. Now, faced with a dwindling workforce, Taiwan has resorted to this brain gain strategy apart from trying to retain its own talent, he said. On the contrary, the Malaysian government is actually failing to nurture and absorb the cream of the crop from all types of schools in the interest of the country's development and the people, but stressed on the pursuance of a monolingual education system. Chow also said that the majority of Malaysians who stayed on to work in their host countries upon graduation only did so because the government back here had not been giving them a fair opportunity to develop their career back home. So it's a well-known fact that it's really hard if you're a non-Bumiputra to actually get a job in Malaysia, and with the quota system in the education department, and also while applying for a job, it makes it really difficult for a lot of people to actually get employed in the country, and the employment rate is going up really high. So it's understandable that these people would actually stay in their host countries and try to make it work over there. The following news is from Penang. Guan Eng does not support the hudud. Political Secretary to the Chief Minister of Penang, Wong Hon Wai, condemned Bukit Gelugo independent candidate Muhammad Nabi for saying that Lim Guan Eng actually supports the implementation of hudud law in Malaysia. Wong, who is also the assemblyman for Air Itam, said that he cannot prove the statement that he made at Taman Tun Sadon Market today during his campaign to woo voters to the by-election. His statement is a lie and has bad intention. Voters should reject his candidacy in the upcoming by-elections. Muhammad Nabi had alleged that Lim has never rejected the implementation of hudud in the country and has even secretly supported past leadership in the implementation of the Islamic Penal Code in Kelantan. Lim, on the other hand, had made his stand clear that he will not support the private member bill in Parliament. Moving on to a news from the DAP, where age is merely a number for Diana. So Diana Sophia has become quite an icon now. I'm sure every one of you have noticed. An Ipoh born, Diana Sophia. Age is merely a number as she faces as an uphill battle as the DAP candidate for Telok Intan by-elections, as her priority is to serve the needs of the people in the constituency. The 27-year-old lawyer believes in breaking the racial political mold during the 2-week campaigning. When asked about the hudud law, she said, "If I'm given the chance, I would definitely vote against it, as it is unconstitutional. Firstly, we need to reform the judiciary and court practices, which must be given priority," she said, who credited her mother Yami Sabat, an UMNO member, for her exposure to politics at a very young age. She sees the experience as an advantage to address bread and butter issues and the impact of the Goods and Services Tax (GST) once it was implemented in April next year. When asked about women's participation in politics, she said, There should be more women involved in politics because women should be decision makers, like my mom who joined politics. It's about empowering women through politics and increasing their competition at decision-making levels. So let's move on to a news from Manila. 1 killed and 6 hurt as train hits jeepney in Manila, reported by the Inquirer.net. So for those of you who don't know, jeepney is actually this little truck that is colorfully painted and used as their public transportation. A man died while 6 others were badly hurt after a passenger jeepney they were riding was struck by a Philippine National Railways train in Sampaloc, Manila on Monday afternoon. Ronaldo Macapagal, 56, who is a cigarette vendor, was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital Sampaloc, where 6 other passengers were rushed for treatment. Of the injured, 2 were reported in critical condition. Paul de Quiros, who is the PNR spokesperson, said that the jeepney tried to go past the rail crossing while a train was approaching to its direction along the corner of G. Tuazon and Algeciras streets. De Quiros said that he could not provide further details as of the moment, but emphasized that the PNR has the right of way during the incident. In a radio report, Manila Police District officer on the scene was quoted as saying that the jeepney was dragged for about 200 meters from where it was hit by the train. There were reports that before the incident, the driver actually reeked of alcohol and was also warned of an approaching train, but he ignored it and drove onto the rail tracks anyway while the bar was being lowered. So if that was really the case, I do hope that the driver gets charged because he did not only put his life in danger, but because of him, a man has actually died and 6 others were badly hurt. So we all know how bad drinking and driving can be, and also to ignore these hazards to actually drive onto the rail tracks while a train is approaching. There's something really wrong with him, and I hope they avenge their death. And moving on to CNN, newly crowned Miss Universe Thailand in hot water over red shirt remarks. She was only crowned Miss Universe Thailand on Saturday, but has already become caught up in the political crisis engulfing her country after comments were found on her Facebook page referring to pro-government demonstrators as dirty, evil activists that should all be executed. According to the news site Kasot English, the 22-year-old has often published scathing comments about the red shirt movement on her Facebook page, which now appears to have been deleted. I am not neutral. I am on the side of His Majesty the King, Waluri said in a comment from November. I am so angry at these evil activists. They should all be executed. Waluri also reportedly said that Thailand would be cleaner if these dirty red shirts left the country. Waluri, who is also an actress, a talk show host, and an English student, apologized on Monday for the remarks in an interview on Thailand's Channel 3. I was callous, I was young, I did it recklessly, she said. It won't happen again. So apparently the people in Thailand are still not happy over her apology, and they've been staging demonstrations, so we'll see how that one pans out. The following news is reported by Al Jazeera America, which reports that Thailand could be on the brink of a civil war. The current crisis in Thailand began last November when royalist conservatives in Bangkok began occupying public squares demanding the ouster of Yingluck's democratically elected government. More than 25 people have been killed and hundreds injured during street protests. Thailand's one-time budding electoral democracy is now low and increasingly besieged. A would-be royalist government might attempt to overrule the dissenting public using a combination of force, fear, and coercion. However, as both pro- and anti-government activists gather for yet another showdown, these protests are likely to proceed beyond control. Thailand is actually at a dangerous crossroads right now Buoyed by the Prime Minister's oyster, jubilant protesters are demanding all branches of the state apparatus to transfer power, which represents protesters now pressing the Senate to replace caretaker government with an appointed administration. A free, fair, democratic election is the only way out of the current turmoil. The royalists' stubborn insistence on finding a virtuous leader, an appointed prime minister whom they approve, will only exacerbate an already acute situation. Their unconstitutional and highly unpopular scheme faces widespread resistance from the red shirts. For their scheme to succeed, therefore the royalists were likely to purge a large number of red shirt leaders, resulting in potential large-scale unrest. So I think the UN and the other Southeast Asian countries have to come in here and probably continue to hold a dialogue with Thailand and insist that it returns to its previous electoral democracy and put their differences aside and try and reach a consensus, because what they are looking for is democracy, but with everyone divided into this red shirt, yellow shirt, blue shirt, it's kind of hard to get there. The next news is reported by BBC News Asia. China ships evacuate Vietnam workers after protest. 2 of 4 ships evacuating Chinese workers from Vietnam are now returning home, Chinese media say. After protest over a territorial dispute, more than 900 people boarded each ship at the Vietnamese port of Vang Ang following anti-China violence triggered by a row over the South China Sea. The ships were sent to evacuate some 3,000 Chinese workers from the Taiwan-owned Formosa steel mill in Ha Tinh, central Vietnam, where violence broke out on Wednesday and Thursday. The Vietnamese protesters are angry at China's decision to move a drilling rig into disputed waters. So as we all know, the rig was actually placed earlier this month in the Paracel Islands, which both Beijing and Hanoi are claiming to be theirs. And the ships from the two sides have also actually collided in the rig area of a few times, and Vietnam is actually seeking to block the move. And according to BBC's Martin Patience in Beijing, last week's violence was the worst unrest seen in Vietnam for several years. China has taken an increasingly assertive stance on its claim in the South China Sea in the recent years, causing ties with regional neighbors to deteriorate. We also know that they're having a dispute with Philippines at the moment, which also spurred the Philippines to actually sign the EDCA treaty with the USA to protect Philippines from any imminent danger that China might cause. And now we don't know what Vietnam is going to do. They are probably also coming up with some measures to protect their sovereignty, and they don't want China going into their waters. And I think they're taking this to Beijing, to a UN court, to settle this. So let's just hope that it gets settled quickly and that Vietnam can go back to the way it was before. Vietnam's Chinese flee unrest to Cambodia, the following news reported by Al Jazeera. Sparked by China's aggressive development of a 1 billion oil rig roughly 110 kilometers inside Vietnam's exclusive economic zone, mob violence has led to an estimated 21 killings after crowds began targeting and looting foreign-owned businesses and factories in the south of Hanoi last week. According to a statement released from the Vietnam government, these rioters believed they were targeting Chinese-run facilities, but were also mistakenly attacking several Taiwanese and South Korean businesses. According to the Department of Immigration, though, their computerized records, more than 700 Chinese passport holders crossed into Cambodia on tourist visas over the course of a day. Many of these Chinese travelers are appearing to be nervous to stay in Vietnam. And they are actually waiting for their passports to be stamped, shying away from photographers, and trying to get away from Vietnam. One man who wants to remain anonymous out of fear of further harassment became flustered when asked by Al Jazeera reporters about the circumstances of his exit from Vietnam, saying that his trip to Cambodia was not a vacation, but that the situation in Vietnam was very bad, as he was quoted saying. According to the Vietnamese Foreign Ministry, the placement of China's oil rig violates their 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and it's illegal under international law. The feuding neighbors have been engaged in small-scale naval skirmishes, deploying ship-to-ship water cannons, ramming at each other hundreds of times since the conflict began earlier this month. While Hanoi has openly condemned China's actions, the outbreak of violence against a foreign-owned business risks a potential investment backlash in Vietnam, a country which is actually it has economically, it's highly dependent on manufacturing for the international market. So this is really bad for the Chinese people in Vietnam, and also because these Vietnamese cannot actually tell the difference between the Chinese, the Taiwanese, the Koreans. So all of them get attacked because of what China is doing, and I'm thinking that the government is probably going to react real soon to call for a dialogue. Like earlier, it seems they're taking the case to the UN court in Beijing, as they have been very badly hit. Okay, I think that's all the time that we have for today for our ASEAN news. I'll be back later with you in about 10 minutes for our Blast from the Grassroots session. The topic for today is surviving in music. We have a special guest called he's Tony Leo, who will be joining us shortly. So don't forget to like us on Facebook, to follow us on Twitter. You can also tell us about your comments, any suggestions that you have. You can let us know on Twitter. Just send us a tweet at Durian ASEAN and hashtag Durian ASEAN ABC. And also, if you want to tune into us and you don't have a computer nearby, you can always download the TuneIn app on your smartphone and look for Durian ASEAN.